Hi everybody, welcome to episode 7 of Radio Europa. My name's Laura and today we're with Alex from Italy, who's a regular on the show, and also Darth, who is our special guest today. He's one of our writers from Scotland. Darth, would you like to introduce yourself and say a little about how you got involved with Defend Europa?
Hello there. I became involved with Defend Europa. I started writing under a name of Darth Common Sense through WordPress, the blog posting site. So I would write about topics which I found particularly interesting, mainly political. And I started a Twitter handle to post these blogs, and through exploring on Twitter, I came across the editor for Defend Europa, who I'm currently speaking to, Laura, and knocking a couple of messages back and forward, she asked me if I wanted to write for the website, as and when I wanted, and here I am.
Brilliant. Well, it's great to have you on board. So we've got quite a lot to get through today. We're going to try and keep, but we want to talk about Italy and just give an overview of the situation of the last month. Also, Article 13, which is the infamous EU meme ban, and then we're also going to talk about the Windrush situation in Britain, because last week was the 70th anniversary of Empire Windrush, which was the start of mass immigration to Britain. So just to go back to Italy. And I'm going to let Alex lead on this because he's our resident Italian. But this started with the Aquarius NGO, which was, I think it was a few weeks ago now. That's gone quite fast. But that was an illegal shuttle service which attempted to dock in Italy, and 629 migrants on board, predominantly sub-Saharan Africans, which were picked off the coast of Libya and taken to Italy. And obviously Salvini turned it away and said that he's not accepting any of these illegal NGOs. Alex, can you give us a rundown? I know there's quite a lot to report, but can you give us a rundown perhaps of what's going on in Italy, or what has gone on over the last few weeks?
Yes, with pleasure. Well, the Aquarius was just, the start of the whole NGO scandal messed with Salvini. Basically, the Aquarius was refused the possibility of docking to an Italian port, and also from Malta, which basically started, the mainstream media machine against Salvini. He was basically painted as some kind of evil man, letting children and women starving in the sea and drowning them. The usual stuff that the left does. Like basically guilt trips and bullshit like that. And still, Salvini, of course, didn't fall for the leftist media. And he stood strong, and in the end, Aquarius basically had to change route, and was finally accepted by the Spanish government, the newly elected Spanish government led by Sanchez, an hard-left politician. And well, that was just the start. But after the Aquarius, Salvini didn't stop there. He basically, first of all, blocked 2 more ships that I believe were bearing the Dutch flag, even though even the Dutch government didn't recognize them as Dutch ships, and there's an investigation going on there. Then another ship, I believe it was the Lifeline one, I believe it's a German NGO, was basically refused from entering Italy, and was recently brought to Malta, where they would be put under investigation. And it's finally changing, because just 1 year ago, the NGOs were acting freely. They were just, doing their taxi job, cooperating with smugglers, and doing their thing, basically facilitating the population replacement, and also helping the Italian mafia and the smugglers, getting money. It was a huge business. But first, we had the Defend Europe mission by Generation Identity, which kind of put some light on the situation. They had recordings of the Libyan Coast Guard trying to fend off the NGOs from entering the waters, and also footage of the NGOs entering Libyan waters illegally all the time, and also turning off their lights during the night, which is illegal, and many other things. So it was known for a while that the NGOs were committing crimes, and not only working as a pull factor. And by pull factor, I mean their presence invites people to basically immigrate illegally. So they were like acting as a pull factor, but not just that, also cooperating with smugglers. And well, now things are changing because finally Italy has a government that actually cares about its people and its well-being. And Salvini even traveled to Libya recently. I believe it was 2 days ago. I wrote a short article on it. He met the authorities of one of the two governments in Libya. And even though he went there with the idea of proposing the establishment of a hotspot for migrants in the southern side of border of Libya, it was initially refused by the Libyan government. But the good news are that the two coast guards, the Italian and Libyan coast guards, from now on will work together even more. And this means that many migrants will be caught by the Libyans and brought back to the Libyan coast, which already happened. I believe already 1,000 migrants have been quote unquote saved by the Libyan coast guard and brought back to Libyan coast. So it's looking great, but this is my personal opinion. Until Salvini doesn't find a deal with both governments, nothing will change completely. Because like the important parts where the smugglers are working are under the Haftar government control, not the other Libyan government. Which means that unless Salvini manages to find a way to basically get the two governments to work together against smugglers, there is no way that the problem will sort itself. Because the thing is, these smugglers are hurting both Italy, because of course they're facilitating the arrival of thousands of illegals, African migrants, and at the same time they're preventing the reconstruction and stability of Libya. So it's good for both countries. And finally, Italy might manage to kick out France from Libya, because since Sarkozy basically killed the Gaddafi, France basically stole Libya from Italy. Because Italy has always had some kind of good relationship with Libya, not just because it used to be a colony, but because, you know, Berlusconi, Gaddafi, and being close, it was such a very good relationship, both for gas, but also immigration. But France ruined it all. So hopefully Salvini will manage to get back to having good relations with Libya. Would be a great start.
Yeah, and I mean, we've always reported at Defend Europa, haven't we, that this is a message that we need to be putting out there. Like, don't even risk your lives and try and come over to Europe, because if we don't accept you, I mean, is it something like 600 migrants have already died or something this year trying to cross over?
And the number will increase. The number will increase. That's the thing. And we need to make it clear that they will not make Europe their home. And the thing is, the only way to achieve this is to do what Australia did, the no-way policy. You establish an hotspot in the African continent, like the Australians did in Guinea, I believe. And if you're a refugee, you get the refugee status until the war is over, and then you go back to your country. If you're not a refugee, you're an economic migrant, well, you can fuck off back where you came from. That's simple as that. Australians have been doing that for I don't know how long, but it's working, because since that policy was applied, there were no more landings by illegal migrants. And the NGOs stopping their operations are just a start. But it's going to start again, you know, like illegal boats, illegals drowning, and Italy, of course, and especially Salvini getting blamed for it. Like 2 days ago, some leftist lunatic made like a graffiti in Milan depicting Salvini as Hitler, and like a shit ton of media personalities are saying that Salvini is literally Hitler, literally Mussolini, is bringing fascists back to Italy because he's suppressing blah 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 blah. Like there is so many fake news right now on Salvini, but the good thing is Salvini managed to make his Facebook his own media, and people that follow him and want to know about him don't care about the media, because they know that it's going to be full of lies. And Salvini has basically the biggest Facebook page in Italy, and I believe he's also the most followed politician in whole Europe on Facebook. And it was a very smart decision of his, because in this way he can tell his side of the story. He basically told his public like the whole thing about his trip to Libya. with pictures and comments and live videos. He's always among the people. When he's not working outside of Italy, is going to cities, talking to people. He's a man of the people, and this is why people like him, because he's not acting like he's somehow superior or detached from society. And talking about people being detached from reality, one of the new leftist mayor politicians called Calenda is basically going to be the new leader of the left, like of the new left post Renzi. Okay, and you would expect that you will know why the left failed this badly in Italy. Like the main party of the left got like 17, 18%. Okay, that's like an historic low in Italy, and they should probably know why they got that, because they always spoke about immigration, LGBT bullshit, and they never talked about problems that actually touch the working class people, the middle class, the majority. Okay, you will say they will change. No, they won't, because like today, Calenda gave an interview to a radio, and one of his first things was, "We are gonna remake some kind of new party or whatever, and we're gonna focus it on being against nationalism." And I mean, these people are so detached from reality. I mean, it's good for us because I mean, our enemies are stupid, but at the same time, it makes me wonder how you can be this detached from reality. Like 60% of Italians voted against this kind of internationalist way of doing politics, and yet you think you're right and that the others are wrong. It's like when you're playing with a child, you're playing like cards or a sport, and they lose, and they refuse to accept that they lost, so they will try to find excuses. And if you follow leftist politicians, or just read what like leftists tweet on Twitter, all they do is like trying to find excuses why they lost. Oh, because Italians have always been racist, or Italians are ignorant, blah blah blah. But you know the usual stuff that they say about right wingers. Like one of the major leftist pages about memes and shit like that. I mean, it's not like the left can't really meme, but you know what I mean. And they made a post saying, if you're tired of seeing people that voted Lega or the 5 stars, just go to a library. And they think it's funny. They think it's funny. But this is why they lost elections. Because whoever doesn't agree with them, for them is retarded. And millions of Italians understood this and are tired of it. And yet they will not change. I mean, I'm glad they won't, but it still baffles me.
It's not just, in Italy that you have that kind of mindset. It's society in general that mindset is creeping into. I mean, I experience it all the time. It's never the person or the group of people's fault. It's always somebody else's, and they can always point blame at somebody else why they were responsible for causing that. I mean, it's the same in America right now. It's always, look at, for example, Hillary Clinton. She has blamed everybody but herself. For why
she wrote a book about it.
Yeah, and it's just this kind of, she's blamed everybody but herself. She's blamed the electorate. She's blamed Donald Trump. She's blamed, various members of law enforcement agencies.
The FBI.
Yep. And it's just like, at some point in time, you have to accept some responsibility for yourself. And again, it's there's somewhat of an ironic mirroring right now. You've been talking about Italy with Libya, and you've got obviously the movement of people from Mexico down through Southern America into America or into the USA, and you've got this problem of everybody's saying it's the American government's fault, it's Donald Trump's fault that this is happening. And it's like, well, where are the parents making these decisions? They have to take some responsibility. I mean, you hear this, the statistic batted around that somewhere between 70 and 80% of women, children or adult women who travel up into the US through illegal movements are raped or are sexually assaulted. And you think, well, surely there must be some kind of personal responsibility of, yes, there is a problem, ongoing with the immigration policies.
Yeah, I even read an article that some Mexicans or whatever Latinos are kidnapping children to use them as some kind of exchange thing to immigrate to the US.
Well, and this is one of the things that they were talking about. You know, the left is hysterical right now about how the children are being separated from their parents. But the very good point that is made is, like you just said, how do we know that adult and that child are related? How do we know that they are family members? Because if they turn up with no papers whatsoever, how can they turn around and say, yeah, this is my child, without saying, well, here's the proof? So, you know, for all the authorities know, it could just be, you know, a human trafficker is attempting to get a child into the country so that they can be used for child sexual exploitation.
Yeah, and wasn't there a poll done recently in Italy, Alex, that said that 80% of Italians support Salvini's decision to close the ports?
Basically, this 80% was, I remember reading this article on affaritaliani.it, and I believe, like, of this 80%, 30% want to stop basically every kind of migrant, whereas the 50% want a great decrease of numbers. But in any case, yes, 80% of Italians that took this survey were supporting Salvini in his stance. And even among the leftists, there are many who support Salvini on this, because they say that he's a man of word, and he's also a man that went to Europe and is being respected because he has the authority. And I tweeted something about this today. So basically, Salvini said that he has the power. I mean, he didn't say that directly, but he said that within a year, we'll see if we have a united Europe still existing. Because we have to remember that now Italy is like the third economy of the European Union, if we don't count the United Kingdom, okay? Which hopefully will finalize the Brexit. And we can't be ignored. We can't be ignored as a state. And therefore, Salvini is using this power to basically, as a bargain chip. If you won't listen to me, I will destroy you. Salvini was like recorded saying to the press something like, within a year, we will see if United Europe still exists. And he means it. He doesn't say this as a joke. It's a direct threat. You either listen to me or I will destroy you. And it's not because Salvini is some kind of evil madman, but because the European Union has forgotten that they are the servants of the people and not the other way. And Italy is already working towards some kind of alliance with the Visegrad countries and Austria. And the moment these countries form some kind of rebellious voting bloc in the European Union, Germany and France will lose their influence. And let's not forget that next year, 2019, we're going to have the European elections. And if the surveys stay as they are now, both Lega and the Five Stars will win most of the seats. And at the same time, I suppose the Hungarians and the Austrians will also follow suit and, send to Brussels other MPs that are Eurosceptical. And that means that they will hold the power to basically shut down the European Union unless certain things are done. And I mean, so just the existence of this government is already changing something in Germany. Angela Merkel is basically being attacked from within. Her interior minister is heavily criticizing her on her stance on immigration. And there are even talks of the party basically imploding and dividing itself in different parties. Italy basically, together with Brexit, I guess, were like the two first pieces of the domino, and now everything is just falling. Not even slowly, actually, quite fast.
Yeah, I think that we should perhaps talk about Germany the next episode, because there is quite a lot happening over there at the minute with, as you say, Angela Merkel kind of falling to bits. But I must admit, I'm absolutely loving Salvini on social media. I don't have Facebook, but he's so funny on Twitter, and he's ruffling feathers, isn't he? He's not taking any rubbish at all, and
he's so smug.
Yeah, he's so smug. Did you see the tweet? I think he tweeted it actually, and I saw it where there were a couple of little boats behind him, and he said, "Don't worry, these aren't illegal migrants."
Yeah, he says something like, "Don't worry, the boats behind me are not carrying any illegal."
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's like the Italian version of Trump, I guess. He's a walking shitpost, yes.
Yeah, but
we love it.
There are quite a few independent journalists that I've started following who are based in Italy, and they're saying that he's, going out onto the streets and speaking to homeless Italians and doing all this incredible work, and that, I mean, the mainstream media aren't reporting that. They're obviously just calling him literally Hitler.
Yeah, but they're doing this because they know they're in a corner, and things are changing. Even in the state TV, we're seeing that some of the journalists are changing their tone because they know that the times are changing, and their old owners are getting their asses kicked.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very happy about this government. I mean, it's young. It hasn't been not even like a month, I guess. But both parties of the coalition have been calling this government the government of change, and it's showing that for now it is changing things. And a thing that went under the radar that many people don't know is the fact that two main Eurosceptic economists have been appointed to commissions in Italy for the economy and for passing laws. And I'm talking about Borghi and Bagnai. These two men are like the two big economists in Lega, and they've spent the last 10 years trashing the euro. These people are not there just to be moderates on the euro question. They want to destroy that currency. And while leaving the euro right now is not in the program, in the contract of the coalition, it doesn't mean that Lega has forgotten about it, because in the long run, that's the plan. Destroy the euro and hopefully the European Union. Because the thing is, if you want sovereignty of your own country, you need to own your own currency. And first of all, you need to own the possibility of printing your own money. Because let's not forget that printing money now is centralized to the BCE, I believe, right? I'm not saying something crazy. The thing is, countries no longer have the power to print their own fucking money. And that's a hell of a loss of power. And Lega wants to change that.
Yeah, one last question that I just want to get your thoughts on before we move on to the next topic. Do you think that Salvini's border policies will have an impact on any other countries? Do you think that they might just change their routes, or what are your thoughts on that? Because I know that the Aquarius boat went to Spain, didn't it? Do you think there's any cooperation going on between Italy and the other European countries next door, or do you have any opinions on that?
I mean, France has been trashing Italy for like a month. Macron has been saying that the populist forces in Italy are like a plague, and I believe many in Spain called Salvini a fascist, like especially the vice mayor of Barcelona or Valencia. I believe Valencia actually was live on TV, on Italian television, and just said, "Oh yeah, your interior minister is a fascist. How do you deal with that?" Like, these people are, I can't take them seriously. But no, I don't think there is any kind of cooperation for now. But Lega has been talking about the fact that Italy has taken like the worst part of the immigration thing lately because of the Dublin Treaty, and they want to either completely cancel that kind of treaty or rewrite it. But because basically the Dublin Treaty says that whichever country receives the migrants first, the migrants have to stay there, which is bullshit, because you see 90% of the migrants who reached Europe in the last year came to Italy. So, yeah. So basically Salvini is saying that we should send some of our migrants to countries that were supposed to take them, one of them France. But I think he's doing this just to bully them. But in the long run, he plans to deport these people like he promised. Like, don't forget that Salvini promised to deport 500,000. But hopefully in the long run, he will deport more. Because you see, when people reach Italy illegally, but still thanks to NGOs, they get registered and put in certain facilities where basically there are people specialized to find out if they basically can take the refugee status or not. And before Salvini got to power, this was basically being managed by leftists. And what happened is the many people that were supposed to be deported weren't deported. Now I think that since Salvini is basically going to implement a new task force for this, hopefully things will change and many of the migrants will reach Italy, because some will still make it, like the 100 who made it in Pozzallo because of the local mayor basically being, the classic traitorous leftist. I think most of them will be deported, because you see all the migrants coming here now, 95% of them, I mean, it's not like the precise number, but I'm pretty sure it's close. 95% of the migrants reaching Italy tend to be Africans and economic migrants. Therefore, they do not obtain the refugee status in any way, so they're going to be sent back.
Yeah, well, I checked the figures a few weeks ago, and it said that Italy had already taken in 640,000 migrants.
Yes.
But obviously, they're only the documented ones, and I don't trust those figures anyway, because
it has to be bigger for sure. It has to be bigger, because there were also cases of so-called ghost landings in Sardinia. So yeah, wouldn't shock me if the number is like 50 or 100,000 higher.
Yeah.
Well, is it not the policy? I mean, the official policy for the whole migrant movement is when an economic migrant or refugee comes into Europe, the technical legislation is they are supposed to declare themselves to the first country they come to as...
Yeah, that's the Dublin thing, yeah.
But obviously in Italy they got to the point where they were just letting, them move up through Italy into other countries, so they didn't have to have the problem of fingerprinting everybody, taking DNA and having them registered. So you're saying, you have, potentially tens or hundreds of thousands of people more than who have actually come into Italy, because they've just said, you know what, we'll just let them go into the northern countries above Italy, so it's their problem. It's not our problem anymore.
Yeah, I mean, many have gone missing. Many smuggle themselves through, trains, trucks to France, Austria, and France has been working hard on blocking this kind of migration from Italy. And France has also been doing quite some shady stuff, like giving fake documents to I don't know, let's say 20, 30 years old Africans, but the documents were saying they were minors, and or vice versa. Like the French have been doing some shady shit. They also entered the Italian borders illegally to basically chase a migrant. So yeah, France has been doing a lot of shady shit on this thing. And the fun thing is, while France is cracking down illegal immigration, Macron has been calling Italy disgusting for what we're doing. So yeah, the base centrist Macron is teaching us how to do things.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Alex, and also for all the brilliant articles that you're putting out about Italy and the situation over there. They're always very popular on our Twitter account. So if anybody's listening, if you do check the Defend Europa website, Alex probably publishes a few articles every week about the situation in Italy, so it's a good place to keep up to date with what's going on. Okay, so let's move on to the second topic, which is the Windrush situation, because last week was the 70th anniversary of Empire Windrush in Britain, and you've probably heard the word Windrush in the press over the last few months anyway, because there's been a big situation with the British government wanting to deport illegal Windrush migrants that have been in the country for a long time. And, some people were kicking off about it, saying they've been here their whole lives. And other people were saying, well, they're illegal, so they shouldn't be here anyway. But the Empire Windrush, which was in 1948, that was basically the start of mass immigration to Britain. And obviously over the years, we've been, invaded by Europeans, the Romans and the Vikings and stuff. But since 1940, Britain has changed incredibly drastically at all. So we had a load of immigrants come over from India, Pakistan and Jamaica. And then in 1997, when Tony Blair became Prime Minister, there were 3 Jewish politicians, Jack Straw, Barbara Roche and Peter Mandelson, who increased immigration even more so than it had been, those previous few decades. And then obviously over the last few years, we've had the situation in Syria and, all these refugees piling into the country. And the demographics of Britain have changed drastically, as I say. So our last census was 2011. And in 2011, the UK was 87% white British and England was 79% white British. So that's, what's that, seven years ago now. So God knows what the 2021 census will look like. But there was also an article from Birmingham today that said that the white British are about to become a minority in Birmingham. We call it a majority minority, so white British is still the biggest population, but they're less than 50%. But apparently Birmingham has residents from over 200 countries and a high number of Pakistani and Bangladeshi people who have no qualifications at all. And Birmingham also has 50,000 residents living there who don't speak English. So, I mean, this article was, it was saying that it was a good thing, and it was using phrases like, which is just a bullshit phrase, basically. I guarantee that, the working that live there aren't considering this being economic vitality, the actual taxpayers. But I wanted to get your thoughts, Darth, because you're obviously in Britain, but you're in Scotland. We've not spoke about Scotland before, and I've only been to Scotland once. That was when I was about 10 years old. So what's the situation like up there? Is it very white still, or is it kind of like Britain where there are some very white areas but then some very diverse areas as well? What's it like?
Well, before coming on here, I did some a bit of study on this. You were obviously quoted the 2011 census. So at that point, Scotland's population was 5.295 million. Now, the estimated population in 2016 was 5,404,700. Now, in that, the figures of the 2011 census, 96% of the population was considered to be white, so just over 5 million. Your African population was 0.6%, about 30,000. Your Asian Scottish population was 2.7%, around 141,000, and the other population is 0.7%, so around 34,000. So like you're saying, overall, according to the 2011 census, Scotland is considered to be 96% white still. Now, like you were saying about Birmingham, you've got obviously a variety of places where the population is more heavily focused on white, and other places it's a lot more diverse. So the largest populations, like for example the Asian population is about 3%, and about 1% of that is Pakistani, and they make up your largest proportions in 4 cities. So that'd be Glasgow City Council, which is 12%. Edinburgh and Aberdeen City Councils is approximately 8% of the population, and Dundee City is 6%. So, the larger population densities are where there is the biggest diversity. Obviously, Scotland is very rural the further north you go, and generally you find mostly it's either Scottish people who generally don't move at all, or you have retired English people who move, north into Scotland, and generally kind of into the Highlands. The prices of houses is a lot lower, so somebody who's living down in the southeast of England, they make their money, they work their career, they sell their 3-bedroom house for £5,700,000, and they then move up to Scotland, buy a house twice the size for half the price, and pocket the difference. So it's they're happy, and they're happy to live in a beautiful country that's similar to England but is a lot less dense. The ethnicity from the 2001 census to the 2011 census, the minority population doubled in that time period from 2% in 2001 to 4% in 2011. The birth rate in Scotland has been decreasing. The general fertility rate in the UK in 2008 was 63.3, compared to now it was 61.7, whereas the GFR in Scotland was 57.2 in 2008 compared to 52.6. So it's considerably lower than the rest of the population. And one of the things that has been pointed to is that there's obviously a larger migrant movement into England than there is Scotland, and obviously people from third world countries such as African countries in the Middle East are going to have a higher birth rate due to their cultures. The more children they have, the better off they'll be. So they have been making up a larger amount of the birth rate in England as opposed to Scotland.
Yeah. So have you? I mean, I'm from a working class background in Yorkshire, and I grew up on a council estate, and we had migrants moved in, to the houses next door to us, and I've seen the city that I grew up in just completely changed before my eyes. Have you seen any change at all on a personal level yet, or do you think it's maybe not far enough for you to have noticed?
Well, I had penned an article a couple of months ago for our website about an area in Glasgow called Govan Hill. Now, there you had a large population of Romanian and Slovakian. I think they're considered the kind of travelling population of those countries. They were moved from Romania and Slovakia, and a large percentage of the people who came to Britain were moved into Scotland and were subsequently put in Govan Hill. Now, Govan Hill has always been, for a long period of time, a demographic change. So back in the 30s and 40s, there was a large Irish population that was slowly changed to an Asian population, mainly Pakistani and Indian. Now, since this movement of Romanian and Slovakian travelling population have moved in, the Asian population has been pushed out. But in Glasgow, for certain, you can see a big change there. If you go into Glasgow city centre, you can see, when you're walking around during the daytime, there is, just from walking past people, you can see there is a much bigger variety of people, from skin tones to languages being spoken. Now, Scotland is very popular for tourism, so this time of year where the weather has been strangely very good for a long period of time, you'll get a lot of American, Chinese, Japanese people are here on holiday and are touring the kind of the hot spots in Scotland. But no, I would definitely say there is a change here. I would say it's less so than in England. I haven't heard of anywhere in Scotland really where there's so-called no-go zones. In Govan Hill at one point it had the highest crime rate, I think, in Glasgow in Scotland at one point. But there doesn't seem to be as much of a crime issue as there as there is down in England. So we haven't quite hit the problems that are in London or Birmingham, for example, as up here. But there is a slow creeping shift, a change in the population, and I think it's just simply we're further north, so people have to travel further.
Yeah, and have you seen the hashtag New Scots campaign that Nicola Sturgeon's been pushing? Because I remember a few of my Scottish friends on Twitter were kicking off about it a couple of months ago, and it's some sort of refugee integration strategy. I'm not sure if you have you seen that?
Well, yeah, there was I saw a thing a couple of months ago. There was one of the political. I don't actually know whether he's actually in Parliament or not. But yeah, I didn't see that specific hashtag. But there was a proposal recently to give migrants or refugees the ability to vote in Scotland. Now, I don't understand the logic behind this. If you are here as a refugee, you are here fleeing, you're fleeing war, you're fleeing persecution, you have been moved here for your safety. You're not being moved here to then decide the future of the country that you're being moved into. If you wish to vote, if you wish to do that, then you apply for citizenship just like everybody else. Why should you be given the right to vote in a country that you have simply been moved to because you are fleeing persecution? So yeah, it doesn't strike me as a very sensible idea at all, because you have people moving to Britain who have very different concepts of what is and what isn't acceptable, what is and what isn't part of Scottish or UK culture. And if you give an increasing number of people the ability to vote, there is more likely of a very strange outcome in an election. Now, I may be viewed as narrow-minded through that, but if you, for example, my brother, he has never been a UK citizen. He was born in America, and he's never nationalised just because of the cost of buying a UK passport. But he has never had the ability to vote until, through a technicality, he was able to claim citizenship through Canada. But he has never been able to vote as a British citizen because he was born abroad through no fault of his own, and has then lived in Scotland from a very young age, but he's never been able to vote. So why is it that people who have moved here as a refugee should be told, here is your voting ability, you have contributed nothing to the Scottish society, you haven't worked, you haven't paid taxes, and you're now being given the power to decide what happens in the future of a country that you have never lived in and have never probably had any desire to come to, up to the point where you were forced out of your own country.
Yeah, and the very phrase "new Scots," it sounds like there's some old Scots, the actual Scottish people. It is population replacement in full effect.
It struck me it's somewhat similar to you seen that Times magazine front page. What is it? The New Germans. You had the Times magazine had posted that picture of people from the Middle East. And these were the new Germans of Germany. So that kind of, it strikes kind of similarities with the whole idea of Scotland. Now, I don't know. I mean, my kind of, one of the suspicions I have is, the older generation of European people seem to have this. I think there's this almost subconscious fear that if the UK isn't made more diverse, isn't made less white, then you have the real prospects of another world war. Germany was the main cause of 2 world wars, and I think people like Angela Merkel are terrified that if the population is not replaced over time, there would be another general war in Europe. Now the real fear I have is that they seem to be ploughing on with this idea that if you diversify Europe, diversify each individual country, you'll therefore have world peace and there will be no more issues, and we'll be able to explore each other's cultures because we'll be living next to each other. But when you have cultures, when you have a culture clash, you have people coming from India, from Pakistan, from Africa, they have extremely different cultures, and they are very much of the opinion of, or a large amount of very of the opinion of, well, no, I have my culture, why should I give up my culture when I moved to here? Why can't I have that implemented into the society? And you can see it. There are issues where cultures clash, and there does not seem to be an answer to this this issue, and it just seems to be kind of getting brushed aside. Almost, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it further down the line, and unfortunately, further down the line is simply not good enough. You have to address these issues now, before you end up having a civil war in a country, which I think some of the European countries, I think down south right now, one good spark could set off, conflict between groups of people, if the government aren't willing to take a harder stance on the problems which they seem to be, determined to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, and I think that it is just population replacement, and the media and the politicians in Europe, they can't even keep a coherent argument about the reason why we need migrants, because they switch from saying, poor refugees, we need to help them, and then the next they're saying, oh, we need them for a declining population, and then they're saying, well, they enrich our culture and contribute to our economy, and we know that the more heads they've got, they can pay off debt and it's easier and stuff. But then every now and again the mask does slip, and they just say it's too white. TV shows are too white, fashion shows are too white. There's not enough black people or ethnic minorities in that position, and it is just population replacement. They are just trying to lower the percentage of white British people or white German people, white Italian people, and merges all into one multiracial. Just how did Marine Le Pen word it that time? She said something like atomized individual consumers or something, and I think she summed it up perfectly.
Well, I mean, like you're saying, like they can't decide on why we need migrants to come here. What I find hilarious, and you kind of touched on it, is on one hand they say we need migrants due to a population decline. Now, it is true, most European countries, I think Italy is probably one of the worst. There is once a country reaches a certain birth rate, I think it's below 1.2 per family, 1.2 children per family, I think, the country can never recover. So you have, politicians are saying we need migrants to move to our country to help the falling birth rate. But on the opposite hand, they then say, there's a falling birth rate, and not having children is a good thing. Family, having children is one of the worst things you can do. So have less kids. It's better for the environment. It's better if you have your children because it makes your life happier and it makes population overcrowding less of an issue. And then on the same hand, they then say, but we need migrants to prop up our declining population. And the other thing you were saying about, that it's television shows are too white or various organizations are too white. Unfortunately, identity politics doesn't solve issues. You have various, you have organizations or a company. If you solely base your recruitment scheme on the skin color or the origin of a person, you are never going to get the best candidate for the job. If it turns out that the best candidate for an engineering company is a black person, then fine, they are hiring the best person for that job. But when you're saying, a television show doesn't have enough black people or doesn't have enough of a minority, why are we bringing these people into a job if they aren't really best for the job? We should be having the best people for a career, not just somebody who fits into our identity political mindset, which I can see being the eventual destruction of our country.
Can I say one thing? I want to add something to what you're saying. It's not just that sometimes people just get hired because they're black, and maybe because someone could be better, but many times this is not happening in Italy, and for this I'm grateful, but I've seen this in the US and the UK a lot. some jobs are being asked only for non-whites, specifically, like the BBC example. Or many employers will take a non-white worker who has the same skills of a white worker just because they're not white. So it's not just some people that are underskilled, but it's the thing is natives are being penalized, whatever the case.
Yeah, and that you know, that is true. I think there you were having haulage companies were hiring only white people. You know, companies that are delivering goods round about Europe, they were only hiring non-white people to their to their ranks, and people say, you know, well, you can't be racist towards a white person, but if you are stopping a certain group of people from being given the opportunity to apply for a job, that is racism. You know, if the BBC turned around and said, we want only white people for this job, no ethnic minorities are allowed to apply for this job, there would be absolute uproar. And the Labour Party did the same thing recently, where they were charging black and ethnic minority groups, I think it was £20 to enter into an event, and were charging white people £30 for the event. And, you know, the argument was, well, you know, a lot of the ethnic minorities make less money, therefore it makes it more affordable for them to come. But if it was the opposite way around, if blacks were charged more for an event than white people, there would be an outcry of racism. And there seems to be this determination to, you know, allow the persecution of white people in their own country. You know, that is acceptable because the white man has had its day, it's done all of its evil, you know, it's colonized Africa, and now it needs to accept that other people need to be given the chance.
Yeah, it's a never-ending guilt trip.
And you can't run a country on the prospect of you need to constantly feel sorry, because at what point do you know, for argument's sake, at what point has the white man said sorry enough? At what point have they repaid their debt to the?
It will never be enough.
It will never be enough, because the left, especially in America, you know, it's controversial, but controversial among some groups of people. But Jordan Peterson makes the point where, you know, the left have this ability, and they don't seem to realize the problem is they're constantly making new victim groups. You know, so you have, you know, you take it as black people, and then you break it down and you say, well, you know, it's now black people who are from certain groups, or black people who are transgender, or black people who are of a certain sexual orientation. And the left don't seem to realize that they keep, you know, looking for new victims for white people or straight white men to pay reparations to, and there will never be an end to the number of people who are so-called victims of white male oppression.
We just need to stop entertaining it, and just say that we anything that advanced as a country, we're not going to apologise for, and they move the goalposts. I mean, it's been the 2-year anniversary of the Brexit vote a few days ago, and there are a lot of big celebrities who supported the Remain campaign that are just constantly saying that all Leave voters are racist Nazis. And, you know, some of us probably are, but many people voted Leave for whatever reason they voted Leave. It wasn't even to do with immigration. And these people that voted Leave, they're too busy defending themselves. There's just no point, because they're never going to change their opinions on you. And I just think they might as well just come and join us. Just come and join us on the right, because you know, they'll never accept you. You voted Leave, you're evil.
And unfortunately, these groups of people don't seem to learn. I mean, the political movements in Europe and in America keep hammering home that point. You cannot demonize a group of voters simply because they don't vote the way you want them to. You know, one of the biggest reasons, or one of the biggest arguments as to why Donald Trump won, was because people were sick of identity politics, and, you know, they were being demonized. An entire group of people were being demonized. You know, everybody who voted for Trump's a white, you know, a white supremacist. Hillary Clinton demonized, you know, groups of people and it unfortunately didn't work. You know, in the UK, the same thing with Brexit, and I'm guessing, you know, one of the main reasons why Italy has had its political shift is for the same reason. People are sick of being, you know, demonized for effectively existing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So is there anything else that you want to add about that? Because we've still got one more topic to cover, and I'm just conscious of the time.
No, that's fine. If you guys want to press on, I am a mere guest on this podcast. So
Well, that was brilliant. Thank you for that contribution. It's interesting to learn about Scotland. So the last topic, which is Article 13, which is the new copyright rules which the European Union are putting out there. Just to give you a little background, there's Article 11 and Article 13, and they basically they're going to change how we can share content on the internet. And if it comes into effect, then it could force internet companies to ban anything that's considered an infringement of copyright. So, I mean, people are going with the meme ban sort of theme, but it's anything really. I mean, any video or any article that you put out there, any picture, if that's got an image on there, or you know, a graphic or a video, or even a picture of an article, and that doesn't belong to you, potentially, then you could be breaking the law, and you could ask to be removed. You could ask to remove it, and the Article 13, it basically requires all websites to check post against copyright work and remove any automatically that don't measure up. So it's been approved by the EU's Jury Commission, but it won't go into effect until it's passed by the European Parliament. And the Iconoclast did a very good video on this actually. So if anybody's listening, I think it's about a 15-minute video. It's worth checking out. And he basically said that this is just a hellhole of censorship in Europe. And we know that YouTube and Twitter, they just get this stuff wrong all the time anyway. They ban people that haven't even said anything wrong because their algorithms are wrong. And I just dread to think how drastic this could be if it does come into effect. I mean, it is just censorship, really. They're dressing it up as a copyright issue, but they control.
Yeah, it can be exploited to basically silence anyone who is annoying, and I guess the main target is any kind of alternative media. But the thing is, all countries will have to decide what to do about it, and not just about votes, but for example, Italy, at least Di Maio, one of the two main protagonists of the coalition, he already said that kind of article is a limit to freedom on the internet, and the 5 stars are very strong on the freedom of internet and freedom of speech and all that stuff. So they're already basically against it, and I'm pretty sure that Lega will also go against it. So I think it's pretty much safe to say that Italy will not be affected by it, whatever happens.
Yeah. So do you guys think that it will get through then, or do you think? I mean, it's probably a bit of scaremongering, and it probably won't.
I mean, right now the popularity of the European Union is already shit. So if they want to basically get even more people to hate them, if that's possible, I guess they will pass it. But if the same people in the European Parliament are still saying, they will realize that they have to work together, whatever the politics are, and go against it, because this can be used against the right, but it can be used against anyone, any kind of political dissident.
Well, like kind of what is going on in Europe right now, that the European Parliament, they don't seem to be taking on the voting of countries within Europe. They don't seem to be accepting that there is a political shift in people's opinions, and they seem to be determined just to plough on with their own agenda, regardless of what the people have to say. And the skeptic in me kind of thinks, well, if the EU Parliament have this in their head that they want to push through Article 13, I think regardless of what the population is going to say, they'll just go ahead and vote how they want it. I think the biggest thing is obviously the internet was never, it would never be imagined what the internet could be used for. Up till that point, the main ways of getting news were the tabloids and later on television, which were obviously very heavily controlled, and only certain people could put out the news. So now that anybody with a microphone, like we're doing right now, anybody with a microphone has the ability to put out news, put out their own spin on things. And obviously, the you have the problem now of, well, what is real and what is not on the news front. But you then have the issue of, if you employ Article 13, if the media want to have one view on things and ignore the problems that we have discussed tonight, they can do that and nobody can challenge them, because there isn't the ability to discuss these things on places like YouTube. People will no longer have the ability to be able to discuss these issues and get them out into the listening population that is more than happy to discuss these problems.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the Iconoclast video just then, and he was saying in that video that the way that he does his videos is he shows like articles, to emphasize that the media is saying something, or he'll show like a photograph of a politician. Theoretically, that they all fall under this copyright umbrella. So, and we know that the ADL have a huge influence when it comes to things like YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. So we know who they're going to go after. And I just think the potential of it is quite scary. Like I say, they control the media, but they don't have control of the internet. So we know that they're just trying to silence us, really. And it is just dressed up as something that it's not. I think it's entirely a censorship issue. But it also reminds me of, the boiler, as they move in and just change the goalpost slightly a little bit each time, people don't seem to wake up. But there's huge issues with free speech in Britain, especially at the moment, and hate crime laws and things like that. And then now they're moving it to the internet and they're saying we're going to censor this. And when are people going to realise what's going on here? I mean, I can't believe that people still support the EU when they're doing stuff like that. I just want to shake them and say, like, they're infringing on your right to say what you want and think what you want. I mean, the EU it's something like 80,000 pages of rules that the 28 member states must abide by, and they just seem to be adding to it as the days go on. It's just getting ridiculous.
I mean, the UK does not have free speech as you would view in, like, America, for example. I think the only things that America you can't speak about is things that where you are inciting violence through your words. But we seem to be in the UK going down this route of anything that is offensive can become criminal. And I've heard of the recent callings. Don't ask me for sources. I was talking about it at work the other day. There's calls to make calling somebody fat or calling somebody old. If you call somebody fat as part of an insult, that may eventually become a hate crime. You are being hateful towards somebody because of their body weight, therefore you are committing an offence. And the problem that they don't seem to realise is you could, in theory, again, go on to infinity with this thing. If the three of us are speaking right now, we can pretty much talk about a large group of topics that won't offend us. If you then increase that to tens or hundreds or thousands of people having a conversation, how can you talk about something that won't potentially offend at least one person? And the way we're going right now, all somebody has to say is, I'm offended, and it therefore becomes a crime. And that is the road that we seem to be going down, where it's feelings over anything else. Feelings trump all. If I feel offended by something, I have the right to have somebody arrested and charged and put in jail because my feelings have been hurt.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, and it's anything to do with race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or gender, I think, are the 5 threads of hate crime. And it's something like, even if it's not the potential victim, even if it's just somebody else, if they
Yes, somebody perceives
that,
it to be hateful, then yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, I wonder how many, if we played this podcast to the whole of the UK, I wonder how many people would be, I mean, it's been said anything bad, but I wonder how many people would be offended and how many people would say that there are hate crimes just in this podcast. The potential is mental to me. I can't get my head around it.
Yeah, and the problem is you know the five strands of diversity, which therefore become the 5 areas of potential hate. I can see that being expanded in the future, and you know you end up having people who have no idea they're being quote unquote hateful, can potentially end up committing a crime without even realizing it, and it's going to get to the point where people are afraid to speak to each other without, you know, with the potential of offending somebody and therefore running the risk of getting a criminal record. You know, that you see tweets being put out by law enforcement agencies, you know, and they say just because you don't think that you're being offensive to somebody doesn't mean that what you're saying may not end up becoming criminal. And you've constantly got to second think what you're writing or saying. You're thinking, well, could this be decided as hateful? But as has been highlighted, who decides what is hateful? Who decides what is and what isn't acceptable in our society? And as has been said before, it ends up being the people who you would least want to be in power are the ones who decide what is hateful and what is not.
Yeah, so I'm just reading an update about the Article 11 and Article 13 situation, and the last update was June the 20th, and they said that the European Parliament's committee has voted to move forward with its new copyright directive, but obviously they need to go they need to undergo the vote by the. It's expected sometime between December of this year and the beginning of 2019. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that at Defend Europa, and I'm sure we'll be putting some articles out there about any updates that are made on that. Is there anything else that you guys want to add about any of the topics we've done today?
No, I'm quite happy with what we've discussed about. I'm pretty sure Alex has something he wants to say.
No, I think we covered every single topic properly, especially on the identity politics one. Went into details. I think I was pretty clear on the summit on Italy. So yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you to both of you for joining us, and thank you to everybody who listened. If you could give us a subscribe and a thumbs up on YouTube and give us a follow on Twitter at Defend Europa, would be that. Yeah, that's it. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you over on Twitter. Bye bye.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye bye.